that we bought into a week ago, last couple of weeks, we've been on Bama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma. And so that's the Final Four we got. We said Georgia had to beat Alabama. It's not fair that if you lose to Alabama, Alabama should not have to play a couple of weeks later. That's not fair. And we didn't buy into Ohio State because, and the committee agreed with us here, you can't lose to Purdue by 29 points. What the committee really told you, this is what we talked about. I preached this Friday. This is what I preached Friday. I said, ugly losses are more harmful than a good win is helpful. Because everybody, even bad college football teams, have impressive wins. But great college football teams don't get beat by 30 by Purdue. Okay, so Ohio State, the committee told you that Georgia's ugly loss to LSU eliminated them. It wasn't the Bama game. If Georgia beat LSU and lost to Bama, they'd be in this thing. The committee told you that Georgia's loss, coupled with Bama's loss, or Bama's win over Georgia, those two, you're out. And Ohio State, you're not going to overcome a 29-point loss. And I agree that none of those 5 teams ahead of Ohio State would lose to Purdue by 30 points. But here's the other thing. So now here we have our Final Four, Bama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. That's who I think should be in. And I think it should be Georgia 5 and Ohio State 6. I'm great with that, and that's what the committee saw. But I hear now a little complaining about this. Georgia, I mean, come on. I watched that game. They are every bit as good as Alabama. Well, perhaps, but remember this. In the South, there are 2 things SEC teams do. They refuse to play a 9th conference game like other conferences. They only play 8. And they argue that's because it's so tough down here. And then they also face more cupcakes out of conference. And their argument is, well, it's so tough down here. Okay, fine. So we're going to let you play 1 less conference game. And we're going to allow you more cupcakes. I mean, did you see who Georgia played out of conference this year? It was typical. Middle Tennessee State, Austin Peay, UMass. I mean, forget Georgia Tech. That's an in-state rival. If you're going to be allowed to face 1 less conference game, all right, okay, you got it, and face 3 absolute cupcakes, all right, then I'm going to judge your season on a handful of huge games. And Georgia, you had 3 big games this year. Florida, LSU, and Bama, and you went 1-2. I wouldn't judge you so harshly, but if you're going to have the SEC won't play a 9th conference games, faces more cupcakes than everybody, they always have an in-season bye right before the big game, all right, we'll give you all those. But then I'm going to come down on you hard on 2 or 3 big games. And you had 3 biggies? I mean, don't talk about Kentucky. Nobody gives a rip about Kentucky football. In Kentucky. I mean, nobody cares. I'm going to judge on 3 games. Florida beat them. LSU blown out. Bama beaten. 1-2. Can't go 1-2 in your 3 big games because you got 3 weeks this year against Middle Tennessee State and Austin Peay and UMass that were weeks off. Then you have, a bye. And I'll give the Southern teams all that. But then I'm going to judge your season on 1 or 2 games where I'm not going to for everybody else. And so, and in the end, I thought the committee did a good job. I thought the finals, everybody always bangs on the committee. If I have to hear Dickie V and somebody rail on the college basketball committee, they do a great job. If those guys in college basketball didn't know what they were doing, then you'd have 9 seeds and 8 seeds and 7 seeds in the Final Four. You ever notice who's in the Final Four? 1 seeds, 2 seeds, 3 seeds, 4 seeds, because the seeding's good. All the media does is act outrage, a bunch of phony fake news. Every year, if you go to the Elite 8, it's always 7 of the 8 teams are 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed, and maybe there'll be like a 7 seed. That means the seeding was good. And you can say what you want, but the bottom line here is once again the committee got it right. And they did something that I think is very, very important for all of us to remember. It's not your wins. What the committee looked for in your worst moment, how bad were you? Because in the history of college football, of the last 28 years, no national championship team has ever gotten blown out. Ever. Now, they've lost, Ohio State lost to Virginia Tech. I watched that game. It wasn't a blowout. It was 2 really good football teams, and it was a 2-score game. You cannot lose by 30 to Purdue. Okay, LSU lost to Alabama like 29-0. You're out at home. Done. Over. You can go to the Outback Bowl. You can go to the Sugar Bowl. Not playing for the national championship. Kirk Herbstreit defended Georgia's case to be in the playoff. Here it was.
I think the committee has said that 2 losses is too much for Georgia to overcome. This is a historical moment as far as evaluating the committee and moving forward, because the eyeball test, to me, clearly Georgia is a top 4 team.
But at some point, you have to go with what is instead of what might have happened.
I agree with that, too. I'll say it again. If Georgia doesn't get blown out by LSU, they lose in overtime. And if they scheduled out of conference Wisconsin, Utah, and they won those games, I may think of it differently. But when you go 3 and 4 cupcakes and you won't play a 9th conference game, I'm going to judge you really harshly on 1 or 2 or 3. And you were 1 and 2, Georgia, in those 3. You were 1 and 2. Your season boils down in the SEC to a couple of games because you're not willing to play big dogs out of conference. You won't even play average schools out of conference, and you won't play a 9th conference game. There you go. Where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong at the top of next hour. I got Michael Vick, Peter King's got news, Trent Dilfer, Joel Klatt joins us from New York as well. All sorts of good stuff. I tell you, the Green Bay situation with Aaron Rodgers now, you know, we were talking about this as we got ready for our show today. We were just sitting down, we were just talking about it. A year ago, I was being told, I didn't agree with it, that Brady was not the GOAT. Aaron Rodgers was the GOAT. A year ago. A year later, one's man overboard, drama, the other one, still the GOAT. Talent is really important. I tell young broadcasters this all the time. Talent matters. Coachability, relatability with coworkers, every bit as important. Here's where Brady and Rodgers aren't close. Coachability, leadership, working well with others. Ain't close, bruh. Not close. Rodgers way down here, Brady way up here. Calling right, calling wrong on a Monday with Joy. Next.
Saturday, before the 2 title fights between Max Holloway and Brian Ortega and Valentina Shevchenko and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Watch the